This is part 2 of a multi-part video series where I will be discussing Sword Art Online's major criticisms in detail. Watch the introduction episode 0 first if you haven't already. Oh god, what have I done to myself? This will be a long one. I want to start by discussing who Kirito actually is, where he comes from and what shaped his personality. Kazuto grew up with his aunt and uncle, which he long believed to be his real parents. His grandfather had great influence on him, as he forced him to take kendo lessons, which Kazuto didn't like, and physically abused him when he performed not well enough. After discovering at 10 years old that his parents were dead and that his sister was actually his cousin, he started to distance himself from his family, got into computers and video games, and turned into an introvert. Especially with Sugu, he states that he was intentionally avoiding her even in the house they shared. And now imagine yourself being Kazuto. We don't exactly know how many friends he had, but they probably weren't many, or even any at all. Kazuto didn't have anyone to talk with about feelings, and that slowly changed his personality, no matter what it might have been beforehand. It was harder for him to express what he felt and wanted, although undoubtedly he still had the capacity to be compassionate and caring. But what was there to care for? Sugu, you may guess? He says himself that although he felt guilty, his mixed feelings caused him to stay closed off. If we're honest, at the very beginning of Aincrad, 2022, at 14 years old, Kazuto isn't exactly in a good spot. But there along comes Full Dive, the technology to transport your own soul into another world, kind of. And Kirito becomes an escapist. He escapes to Aincrad, he spends every possible hour in the beta and literally logs into the release game at the second the servers open up. The first couple of minutes of the first ever episode are excellent because if you really consider it, they characterize Kirito with having him only say 2 words.
Link start!
Kirito is so fascinated and in love with the game. You can clearly see that in his first day with Klein. With his typical introverted way of speaking, he expresses his deep knowledge and appreciation of the game's systems. And when the death game announcement is made, he isn't shocked for even a minute. One of my most favorite scenes, Kirito accepts the virtual Aincrad as his new reality. Just like that. He escapes the real world because it has less to offer him than Sword Art Online. Man, I'm tired now. That was a long 3 paragraphs about Kirito just before and in the beginning of Aincrad. And I could go on and on at this level of detail, but I think you would be bored as well, very quickly. So let's pick up the pace. Kirito loses his carefree attitude after he loses the Black Cats. In him, the belief that being with other people makes you responsible for them is reinforced by this event. And the turning point, although supported by Sachi's Christmas message, is Asuna. Pondering about what dynamic brings them together and makes both arcs turn for the better. I think it really is the perfect 2-way influence. Kirito demonstrates to her that because they're already trapped in the game, they might as well treat it like real life and live, not lose the years they spend in the game. Asuna pushes Kirito to open back up, and in bettering himself, he starts to have a positive influence on the people around him. And just as he did with the virtual, Asuna shows him that there is value to the real world. That she herself is a thing worth fighting for in reality. But Kirito must discover that even after becoming the strongest player of Aincrad, he cannot beat the game with numbers alone. After the game is over and he encounters Sugo both virtually and for real, his strengths are nothing but illusions. In Alo, Kaiba's appreciation for his SAO actions come and save him. In the parking lot, Sugo's being driven mad by the pain saves Kirito. He cannot achieve anything on his own. He's weak, but he has learned that only if he continues fighting for what he loves, he may one day overcome that. In comparison to Asada, for example, Kirito gained the knowledge that one does not only fight for themselves. And he sort of succeeds. The underworld, where your strength is powered by your beliefs, makes Kirito the strongest human to exist. But even defeating the quite literal administrator, he isn't a god. He cannot do everything. Yujiro dies fighting on Kirito's side in chase of the dream called Alice that couldn't even be achieved in the first place. Just saying this almost makes me cry. It's such a wonderful story and once again grounds Kirito in the harsh reality that humans are just humans. Failure is inevitable. He breaks down, he destroys his self, and his friends have to rescue him from his pit of self-hate. Kirito shouldn't always take the blame for stuff that isn't really his responsibility. We see him being haunted by all the terrible events. The Black Cat's death, Diavel's death at the Floor 1 boss, killing Kuradil and the other Laughing Coffin member, driving Suguo mad, shooting Deathkan out of revenge, letting Yujiro die, and letting Alice be taken away by the Integrity Knights. I think that one belongs here as well. Kirito's story is one of loss, of realizing the terrible things that lie beyond his curtain of ignorance, of recognizing that although compassion, love, mental and moral integrity can achieve good, humans, including him, are still fallible, of finding strength. The meaning of strength, that's a really commonly quoted meta topic of SAO, and I think it perfectly fits. If Kirito's story tells us one thing, then it's that strength isn't something static to be found, it's a process. Kirito is one of us, a bit bland on the outside, but a man of so terrible adventures, I think no one wants to imagine themselves as being him. He is allowed to be the hero, because considering how often he fails, it's just a minor treat. And to all the people that keep saying Kirito comes into Aincrad overpowered, this kid is a gamer. He has played the beta more than probably anyone else. You don't see the literal thousands of hours he poured, and does pour during the game, into training, farming, questing and so on. This carries on after SAO ends, and in all games, of course, the skills of his mind aren't just reset. That wouldn't make sense. It's just logical he starts into the underworld with these sword skills, pun intended. This video is part of a series discussing SAO's major criticisms. The next episode should be on screen right now.